welcome to Paradelphia Radio. This is Rick Pruitt once again here in the Toxic Radio Studios. And a Merry Christmas, or soon to be Merry Christmas to all. We have a very special show with a very special co-host again. She's back in studio for the first time. It literally has been like since March. It's been almost a year since I've been in here. In forever. Yeah. She's far more pregnant now. I did not think that when I left this place last time, I'd be coming back here 9 months pregnant. But here we are. You see what the studio does to people, Mike? Yeah. This is why I stayed away for so long.
This is why. This is the reason.
This is why. Not COVID. I don't want to be pregnant.
But I don't want to be pregnant either.
Why? You guys would be rich. Think about it.
I could not survive pregnancy. Listen, I'm telling you, I've said this my whole life. I give all credit in the world to women who survive pregnancy or childbirth.
Yeah.
I could not. Men in general could not. We would devolve as a population if men had to do this.
Seriously, I tell my husband that all the time. Like when I haven't been very like needy or like making him run to like get me crazy things at like 1 o'clock in the morning, but I have been very like, pregnancy hormones are real, and I don't think that I mentally prepared myself not that I really prepared myself to get pregnant, because this was like a hey, but it was a good hey. Yeah. But they are very real, like literally. What was I watching earlier? I was watching
the Kleenex commercial.
No, I don't remember. It was a Christmas movie, but it was like something really ridiculous, like a little boy opening a present. I literally started to tear up. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is special. He kind of. It was. What's that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Twins.
Jingle all the way.
Jingle all the way. Yeah. And when he
come on, Mike, Jingle all the way. It's the best Christmas movie
ever. And
he said, when he reveals that he's Turbo Man at the end. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
I'm a mess.
She's watching. He opened the Snickers bar.
No, but
he's really not mean. He opened the Snickers and he ate it.
Seriously, that's how I am. But like, poor John. It's getting to the point now that I am all over the place, and I feel bad.
God
for
bless
him.
that man.
He ripped up carpet for me because I said, John, that carpet has been in that house. It's the last of like the old carpet in our bedroom. I'm like, I just don't want him breathing in because it's from the 90s. It's literally what I said. And he's like, well, when do you want me to put it in? And I'm like, what are you doing this weekend? So we went last night, got carpet.
Clearly he knows the answer to that. Yeah. Football? No. That is not the answer.
Yeah. So we went to Home Depot last night at like 8 o'clock at night, got carpet, and thank God he's an ex-construction home worker.
But see, at this point,
he knows how to do all of it.
At this point, the fact that he is a manual laborer is probably working to his advantage, because he has an outlet for his frustrations.
Oh, 100%. You should have heard. I literally have video I sent to Steven earlier on Snapchat, and it was him beating something, and I'm like, you're putting carpet in. What are you beating? And I was like, you okay?
It's a groundhog.
He was like, I'm fine. He's like, I'm trying to get this thing in. And I'm like, okay. Just stay away. But he's a good. He's gonna be a.
So
good
how long we have?
man.
A month?
No, 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Wow.
3 weeks. I mean, I personally think he's gonna come sooner, because even on my way here, I was having those Braxton Hicks, but are like practice contractions.
You gonna have a Christmas baby?
Listen, what if the first baby at Toxic Studios? What if my water broke here, Mike?
Mike, are we prepared for this? We didn't think about this. She said that, and my mind's going, oh shit.
I'm gonna go.
We have no way to prepare for this.
I'm gonna go get my Deadpool costume and go with it and see where it goes.
Do we have hot water and towels, Mike?
Sure.
I don't know what to do with them, but everybody says get hot water and towels.
And lots of alcohol.
Lots of alcohol.
For us, not for like sterilization or anything.
Listen, as soon as I push him out, I'll take a shot. I'm cool.
Boy. Oh boy.
I wonder if that's ever happened. Like, baby's out, give me a shot.
Listen, I plan on trying to breastfeed, but I'm just gonna put it out there. I plan on having a glass of wine and
breastfeeding.
No, not at the same time. But I 100%.
Baby's gonna like that milk.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pump and dump. I guess I don't know.
Pump and dump.
That's what they call it.
Isn't that when you do something and then drop the girl off at the corner?
Oh my gosh, nasty!
Like, I was trying to think of how to say it, but I couldn't quite get it out in time.
Oh my gosh!
I tried to keep it at least a little bit. Yeah.
Listen, nasty. My child can hear at this point. He hears everything.
I know.
This poor baby.
I know. You hear. You hear. You know. You know what kind of guy your Uncle Mike is.
For real. But I can't wait till he's here. I'm not gonna come for a whole show, but I'll bring him in, and
Cool. Yeah.
that would be fun.
We'll do that. We'll get him on camera. His
Yeah.
first,
Oh, that would be so cute.
his first I don't know what, showing to the world
Yes,
of Paradelphia.
his State of the Union. I don't know.
State
of the
of the
Press.
Union.
State of the
I don't
Union.
know.
Tell him. We'll interview him. What do you think?
Yeah,
I bet you a newborn has never been in these studios before, Mike.
paint him orange, give him a
I
wig.
I will double down on that bet.
What was the bet?
The newborn has never been in this toxic
A
studio.
newborn. No, I don't think a newborn.
Unless you count Mike.
Well,
That is true. Sometimes
Intellectually.
I like to come in
Occasionally when
here
he gets drunk.
nude and dripping of goo.
I'm sure probably a baby has been created somewhere in this studio by someone.
Wow.
Somewhere.
Wow.
or babies have been flung around and never born.
I'm getting out of here.
Oh
I'm
my.
not touching anything.
Oh boy. We are so far off topic right now.
I thought this was the topic of the show.
No, it's really not. You would think so, but honestly, no.
Oh,
So anyway, Christmas. Back to Christmas. Let's rein it in.
Christmas time.
Christmas time. So we always do some type of show for Christmas. Usually, I think last year we did a show about, or not last year, we didn't do a show last year, but the year before we did a show about the Christmas ghost story. How everybody always tells, it was a thing, years and years ago to tell a Christmas ghost story. And it was like this thing that kind of went away back in like the end of the 1800s, early 1900s when people would just stop doing that. It became more of a Halloween thing. But honestly, for hundreds of years before that, it was a Christmas thing where you would. I mean, that's what that one Christmas Carol. I'm not going to sing for you, but it talks about telling ghost stories by the fire or something.
Telling ghost stories and
There you
tales
go.
of the glory.
There you go. So anyway,
Leave it to me.
yeah, leave it to Jen. So anyway, so instead of telling, in general ghost stories, there's a book out there that is a very, very famous book that it's funny because it never is brought up as a ghost story, but it absolutely is, blatantly is, and nobody ever really looks at it in those terms because it's a Christmas story. And what I'm talking about is A Christmas Carol
Yes.
by Charles Dickens.
Yep. Good one.
So this story, it's interesting how it came to be, and it's interesting how this particular story has resonated through the years and literally, in many ways, saved the holiday of Christmas.
You think?
Yeah, there's actually a book that I read for this show. It's called The Man Who Invented Christmas. It's by a guy named Les Staniford, and it's all about the it's sort of part autobiography of Charles Dickens and part historical record of how the story of Christmas Carol came to be and what the ramifications of it were. So to start with, you have to kind of know the history of Charles Dickens to know where this all came from. So if anybody's read, and I had to do it in high school, I had to read Great Expectations in high school.
I don't think I had to read that.
Did you read any Dickens
No.
at all? No.
No. I tried to read A Christmas Carol when, what grade was I in? Like 7th grade. My 7th grade teacher loved Charles Dickens, and for Christmas he gave everyone a copy of A Christmas Carol, and I tried to read it, but it's like old. It's like almost like Old English. It's hard to read.
It's rough reading.
Yeah.
His stuff tends to be very wordy. I mean, that's just the general. I think it was a style back then. They were very much less efficient in their words. There's a whole psychological end to that we there's not time to get into today, but I think it is interesting that if you think about just in general, not just Charles Dickens, but all the writing back in history, we've tended to get so much less efficient more efficient in our words. To the point now we have Twitter.
Yeah.
And people tell stories in 100 and whatever characters. That would have been unheard of to people of Charles Dickens' time, because the 120 characters would have gotten you like a sentence or two.
Yeah.
With maybe half a thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the language was just so much more involved and descriptive. A lot of analogies, a lot of metaphor. I guess it was sort of an offshoot of Shakespeare. It's one of the reasons I didn't like Shakespeare in high school, because it's all Shakespeare is all metaphor.
Shakespeare is so. I read. We had to read Shakespeare in high school. I remember that. It's really hard to read.
It is, because you have it, and it's all very subjective. Like, you read it, and you're like, and the teacher's like, "Well, what did he mean?" Well, it could mean 17 different things.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's the accepted thing that he means, but I don't know. Like, he's not here to answer that question.
I remember reading Beowulf, and Beowulf's the same thing.
Yeah.
Which who wrote that?
Oh, that was Beowulf. Beowulf was one of the original old ancient stories. I don't know.
Gosh.
I don't know if there even is an author for Beowulf, to be honest with you.
Really? I just remember. I don't know why I remember that so well, but
it was a Sumerian. It was part of a Sumerian tablet that was found. It was like ancient, like 3 or 4, not actually longer than that, probably about 6,000 or 7,000 years old.
Wow,
it's one of the original stories ever told that people know of.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember the context to why we read it, but I just remember reading it and being like, what? And then we would take tests on describe what this was about, and it's like, I don't freaking know. I couldn't even understand it.
So Charles Dickens himself, the point I'm getting at is his books. If you read his books, many of his books deal with social issues. In that way, he would have, been absolutely all over this new wave of social consciousness or whatever bullshit's going around now in the world. He would have been all about that.
Yeah.
But he was sort of one of the first social consciousness advocates. Because as a child, he had to suffer through a horrendous childhood. His family was poor. His dad was actually thrown into a debtor's prison over a loaf of bread.
Wow, I didn't know that.
To the point where Charles had to take up a job at about 8 years old in a blacksmith shop instead of going to school.
Charles Dickens, wasn't he born in New York?
No.
Or was he raised in
England?
England. I don't know. Never mind. Okay.
New York?
I don't know why. Shut up.
She's thinking of Jim Dixon of the Bronx.
I remember they always talked about Dickinson's New York accent, and
Hey, you guys.
Shut up.
it shows in his book.
Shut it. Shut it.
So anyway, his dad went to prison over this, and he was in prison for a while. And as an 8-year-old, he had to take himself out of school, or his mother did. And he had to go to this blacksmith shop, and his job was basically to pour the oil, the blacksmith oil, into a jar and label the jar and cap it all day long.
Wow.
In front of a window that looked out on the street, so that people he knew, because everyone knew everybody in the town at that point, they saw him in there. And they knew he was in there because the family was poor, because everybody else's kids were in school.
From a freaking loaf of bread.
Over a loaf of bread.
Crazy.
And then, beyond that, they actually imprisoned the rest of his family. So at one point,
oh my gosh,
his entire family, other than himself, was in prison over this debt.
Wow.
Yeah. So he, as an 8 or 9-year-old kid, he was literally subsiding on his own, like working in this shop, getting his own food, whatever.
You want me to cry?
I do. I'm trying to work that
because this is literally on the verge.
I'm trying. We're going to get it, Mike. We're going to do it. I didn't think it was going to work this way, but nobody thinks of telling Charles Dickens' life story to make her cry. But...
It made me cry.
All right.
Shed a tear.
Well, stick around, because it's going to get worse.
Oh, no.
There's a dog involved. No.
Oh, stop it, because that will make me cry. 100%. I cry just looking at Winnie sometimes.
Oh, my. Winnie's her dog, by the way.
Yeah.
Pooh? Oh, I thought the Pooh.
No. I would cry about
him
Winnie
too.
the Pooh, too.
Ah,
Pooh.
okay. She cries at Pooh.
Don't judge me.
So anyway, so Charles Dickens, having this been brought up in this lifestyle, he obviously, when he got a little bit older, he understood that there were abuses going on in society. You had the rich and the poor, and back, you'd think it's bad now, but back then it was, there were no social organizations. There were no I'm trying to think of one of the organizations around these days, but basically any organization that's going to take someone who has doesn't have a whole lot of money. Maybe they're starting out, they're coming out of prison, let's say, and I know there's organizations nowadays that will help you get back on your feet. None of that, none of that existed.
Yep, there was no food stamps and
food
welfare
stamps,
and stuff.
welfare. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Welfare, any of that stuff. So you had this huge divide between the haves and have-nots, to the point where, for people of wealth, it was actually the poor people were actually sort of like a sideshow to them. It was sort of like freaks in a zoo, where you would have these wealthy people would literally take trips into bad parts of town to kind of just go through the streets and look as if they were looking at animals in a zoo.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, don't we do that sometimes in New York?
Sure.
But no, you know what though? Actually, just thinking now, if you think about it, like Skid Row over in LA, there's rich people that will take their kids
Like Sebastian Bach?
through who? I don't know who that
Just
is.
keep going.
Was he Skid Row? I forget.
Just keep
I was
going.
thinking of the Kardashians actually, but anyway. They would like
Such a difference.
They'll take their kids through Skid Row and show them like this is how, but not so much like to make fun of them or to be like haha like they're,
Right.
but to kind of be like this is you are blessed.
Well, this was
Hashtag.
no you are blessed. This is look at the
That
look at
they
the
were
animals.
laughing,
Oh,
yeah.
Like I know, and this isn't part of this particular story, but I know I heard a podcast on the Ripper murders, Jack the Ripper,
Oh, love. I watched a documentary about him
and
recently.
the poor people, like all those murders took place in a poor neighborhood in London. So in order to make money, because they had no money and they had no means of getting money, the more, let's call them entrepreneurial people, if they were next door to a murder scene, they would then charge people to come onto their property, look over their fence and see the bloodstains.
Oh my gosh.
Next door. They would. It was like a little cottage industry where if that murder happened, they would say, "Okay, well, you rich people, you want to come over and see the murder scene?
Wow.
Come on in, pay us a little money,
Penny a peek.
penny a peek." Yeah, this was a real thing. This
It's
was a
no
thing that was
different
done.
than like slowing down to see a car crash
Yeah.
or watching murder mysteries and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I can't do that pregnant. But I did talk about Jack the Ripper. There was a show on like History Channel or something that the guy swore that his grandfather was Jack the Ripper
yeah,
or something. I don't know.
yeah.
It's a good one. Watch it.
So growing up in this environment, Charles Dickens obviously had this animosity towards the wealthy, and he knew there was this these wrongs that were committed, and not just that, but children back then were completely abused in terms of just like his own experience, putting him to work instead of having some kind of program in place where he could go and go to school.
Yeah.
And when the children were in these workhouses, there was no child labor law. There was nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you basically worked those kids to the bone for next to no money, sent them home, and
Chimney sweepers.
chimney sweeps and whatnot. They were if you were old enough to walk and you were old enough to like function in a job, any job, you went out and made money because these people were so unbelievably poor. So you
What
had 6 and
year?
8 year olds out there.
What year was this?
These were in probably 1820, 1830s.
1800s.
Yeah, early 1800s. So this was the environment he grew up in. So when he wrote his novels, a lot of his novels spoke to this. Like all these novels that he wrote, most of them had to do with characters that had and had not. And the protagonist of the stories often tended to be these kids or adults. Maybe it was an adult, maybe it was a kid, but that were on the wrong side of the tracks, and they somehow worked their way up into a better situation. Or in the case of A Christmas Carol, it was kind of working the other way around, where the protagonist of the story was Scrooge, and he was already on top, and he had to be brought down.
Yes.
So that was basically the theme of Charles Dickens' life work, his books. So the funny thing about him, when he started writing, he would get very into the business end of it. I think he was very much the first modern author, because if you hear authors these days like Stephen King or Clive Cussler or any of these people that are out there, J.K. Rowling, or any of these people that are writing these days,
She need to sit down now. She's been canceled a couple.
basically they are very much involved, and they know their worth. They know what the production values are of their books. They know what the numbers are. They know how to negotiate a contract.
Yeah.
That's pretty much been the case for a long time now with authors, but this was really the beginning of it with Dickens, because he was the first one to really get involved and say, you know what? I see the numbers on these books, because he was reaching a huge audience. I believe I have a note in here, something about his audience was, I want to say he was reaching something to around the neighborhood of 300,000 readers in Victorian England.
Wow.
Which sounds like a lot, but if you think about this, there were probably about 16 million people living in Victorian England, but at the time, there were only about 2 million that were able to read.
Oh.
So he was reaching close to a quarter of the eligible readers in the country. If you take that and now extrapolate it to today, we have 360 million people in the U.S. Let's say 250 million of them are able to read.
Yeah.
If you have a person who writes a New York Times bestseller that sells 100,000 books, they're on top of the bestseller list.
Yeah.
That's a fraction of a fraction of a fraction
Wow.
of the number of people that can read in this country.
Yeah.
That's
a small fraction.
He was reaching a quarter of the able-bodied readers in the country at the time.
Wow.
So he had a huge influence. His books. That's why he wrote about what he did. He felt like what he was writing was important because he was writing about these social issues, and he felt like what he was doing was maybe changing the opinions of these people. It would be like today having an author, sell 50 or 60 million books, like that. That would be crazy.
Yeah,
but that would be the equivalent.
That's a really good point. I didn't think about that. That not a lot of people knew how to read back then. On top of, and for him to sell that many books, if someone sells that many books in the U.S. today, it's a big deal. Yeah,
right. And that's what I'm saying. You get on the top of the New York Times bestseller list for selling 50, 60, 70,000 books.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great number.
Yeah.
You're going to make a shit ton of money off of that.
Oh, my gosh.
But you're only reaching a fraction of a percentage of the number of people you possibly could reach in this country.
Wow.
So anyway.
Charles Dickens, y'all.
So anyway, so this was all going on. And while this was going on, Charles Dickens, because he grew up in the way he grew up, he would oftentimes, when he became a little more famous of an author, he would oftentimes visit kind of like fact-finding missions for his books, where people, like, if you're gonna do a movie about Philadelphia, people will come to Philadelphia to kind of see the city, see what it's about. So he would do the same thing with his books. A lot of his books were about childhood abuses and these homes that were like these orphanages that children would go into that would be severely abused. So he would go to these places to look around and see what was going on, so he would know how to accurately portray them in his books. Yeah. And a lot of the people that he would go with, because he would go with groups of people, his publishers or whoever, those people wouldn't stick around because it was so horrendously bad.
Yeah.
But he would. He'd hang out there, and because he wanted to get the full experience, and he knew. Like, he knew going in what he was going to see because he'd already been through it.
What's that movie where the little boy comes up to, can I please have some more? And the guy goes, more? What is that movie?
Probably Oliver Twist, right?
Yeah. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. So in 1843, which is the same year he wrote Christmas Carol, he went to a place called the Field Lane Ragged School. Field Lane Ragged School. They called it the Ragged School because the kids that were in the school were literally ragged kids.
Oh, no baths.
Yeah.
No clothes without holes in them.
Smelly kids.
Smelly kids, right. Like, it was horrible.
So smelly.
Yeah.
Mike can relate.
So
smelly right now.
So he had this background, and when he started writing this book, he based it on a lot of different things. He had precursors to this book. Like, he wrote a story in 1835 called A Christmas Dinner, which was about people around a dinner table that they basically had lost their youngest child. And it was very much in the vein of what eventually happened to Tiny Tim in Christmas Carol.
Oh, okay.
So this story was kind of took that angle, but the story was all about, appreciating your children while you have them, because next year, and the way they worded it was like, I'm trying to think if I wrote down how they worded this, but it was something to the effect of, it was like they don't mince words, but back then, something about appreciate your children while you have them, because next year they may be in the dirt for the worms or something. Like, it's just,
oh my gosh,
it was like really graphic shit.
That's sad. Why would you see that to me?
So triggered.
Yeah.
So this was the origin. There was also another story in 1836 called "The Story of Goblins Who Stole a Sexton." So the story
Never
of
heard of that
goblins,
one.
the story of goblins who stole a sexton. A sexton is a church worker.
Yeah, I did know that.
So
I
it's-
do remember that from history class.
So the sexton
Sex.
was very much like a Ebenezer Scrooge character, whereas he was a church worker who did not have a bit of good in him, and he looked down on everyone who had less than he did and who was coming to the church to complain and pray about these things. And he kind of was like one of these people that just said, deal with it yourself. You got your problem. Like, he looked down on people that had problems.
Yeah.
He was kidnapped from the bell tower of the church by goblins and shown through a series of visions what these people were going through in their home lives. And when he came back to the church, he then had this new appreciation for the people that would come to the church looking for help.
Right.
Again, a lot like what happens to Ebenezer Scrooge in A Christmas Carol. So he wrote these books, these stories ahead of time, and he took a lot out of these stories and put them into A Christmas Carol when he wrote that. So that's Dickens. But at the same time, simultaneous to what's going on with Dickens in his life, Christmas, the holiday itself, had also taken a downturn. Christmas has not always been what it is now. It hasn't even been what it is now for the last, let's say, 150 years.
In what way?
In the fact that at the beginning of the celebration of Christmas, it wasn't Christmas. It was basically a pagan holiday called Saturnalia. We've talked about this on the show before.
Yeah, I recall us. Yeah.
So Saturnalia was a pagan holiday that involved a lot of debauchery, a lot of drink, a lot of
Food.
raunchy sex and food.
Yeah.
And fighting.
Fighting.
I know if anybody wanted to go watch a special where I learned about this, and it seems really weird to learn about this, that show Adam Ruins Everything. I think it's on True TV.
Yeah, it is. I love that
He does
show.
a Christmas one where he shows the pagan holiday and how it got transformed into what it is today.
Right.
And it's extremely informative. But yeah, if people want to learn more about it, it's crazy.
I
Yeah.
love that show. That show is like will make you think that Adam ruins everything.
But yeah, when he tackles Christmas and goes through the story and the hypocrisy that goes with it and the
Right.
religion aspect that really wanted nothing to do with it, it's insane.
I'll have to look
Yeah,
that one up.
it's basically a situation where when the Roman Catholic Church took over England, like they did this with a lot of holidays, they had pagans that they wanted to convert into Christians. To do that, they felt that the easiest road to do that was to take the Christian holiday, make it on the same day as a pagan holiday, and just say, look, we're kind of like the same thing. We sort of do the same thing you do.
Right.
Come celebrate our holiday because we have X, Y, Z, and you have X and Y, and it's almost the same thing. And it was a way that they kind of drew them in.
Mhm. It was all a facade just
Right.
to draw people into the cult. I'll leave it alone. Goodbye.
Yeah, before you get something thrown at you.
So with Christmas, you had Saturnalia, and basically the church was all up in arms because that everything that Saturnalia was about went against the church's teachings. On top of that, you had Oliver Cromwell took over England, which was the huge. If you know your history, it's basically his reformation of the country was unbelievably strict and overly religious to the point where you couldn't, like, people would literally be arrested for celebrating Christmas
Wow.
because the way they looked at it, he associated Christmas with the Saturnalia holiday. So if you were celebrating Christmas, you were celebrating Saturnalia, which meant that you were celebrating a pagan holiday.
Wow.
So you literally would get arrested for celebrating Christmas.
How crazy.
So this went on for a while to the point where once England was retaken back over by the monarchy, people had been through this PTSD with Christmas to the point where nobody wanted to do anything. like all right, we're done here. Like,
We're good.
We're good. We don't want to do anything because you've been through this thing where, we went crazy for a while, then we were thrown in jail for celebrating. Now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So nobody knew what to do for the holiday, and it kind of became this like secondary holiday. It became very much like the Groundhog's Day of holidays. Like it's there, it's on the calendar. Maybe you say something about it when it happens, but it really wasn't that important of a holiday. And that went right through Charles Dickens' early life. up until the point where when he wrote A Christmas Carol, he was writing his ideal version of Christmas, which was not what was actually going on at the time.
Wow.
So basically, it would be kind of like taking Arbor Day, which is the secondary. It's on the calendar,
No
but
one
nobody
really
cares
cares.
holiday, and making it into this thing where people gift each other trees. Let's say I write a book where everybody gifts each other trees, and and go outside and we sing songs and we do and I name all these different things you do on Arbor Day, and it gets read by 60 million people in the country, and everyone goes, "Oh, cool, let's do that." And everyone started doing that on Arbor Day.
Wow.
Like, that was basically what he did for Christmas. When he wrote this book, and he talks about how they had parties and how there was celebrations and gift giving and all that stuff, that wasn't going on.
How crazy. I never knew that.
So when people read this, they took to that and actually started to do the things they read in the book in subsequent Christmas holidays.
So Charles Dickens is technically like Father Christmas.
He very much is. In fact, when he died, it's funny, when he died, there's a quote. Somebody at the very end of this book says, when he died, they told I think it was a blacksmith or something, or I don't know, somebody. And the question was, "Oh, Charles Dickens died. Does that mean Father Christmas died?" Like, they literally were associating him so much with the holiday that they thought that he was Christmas.
Well, look how many times that the Christmas Carol has been like morphed into so many different movies. Like one of my favorite Christmas movies ever is Scrooged with Bill Murray. Mm-hmm. And I could watch that movie over and over again, but it's a Christmas Carol.
Right. And it's interesting because Charles Dickens took people to court over they didn't have a really strong copyright laws back then. So people would read these books, they would see that he was making money and they were very popular, so unscrupulous folks would get the book, they'd change a few words, change a few names, put it out there for half the price, and nobody would know the difference. So he would take these people to court. Now, flash forward to, like you're saying, like a billion different incarnations of this story. Like, I wonder what he would think about that these days when you have the Muppets doing it and Bill Cosby. Bill Murray. Bill Cosby's not doing it.
Pudding.
He might be doing it right now. We don't know what he's doing. I mean,
maybe he's doing the jail version.
He's got a lot of free time on his hands. I would not like to rule out him doing anything.
A Greaterford Prison Christmas Carol. Or wherever the hell he's at.
I'm sure people would watch it.
I would too. Write
him a letter.
Yeah. So basically, you have this situation where he wrote this book and it became very, very popular, and he tried to recreate it because you look back on history now and you say, oh, that was kind of a one-off. I mean, not that he was a one-off author because he had a lot of famous books, but that particular story was such a unique story in the history of his writing. You kind of look at it like, well, there was no other Christmas Carol. But at the time, in real time, he didn't know that. So he saw the popularity of that book in 1843 and said, okay, I'm going to write another Christmas book in 1844 and 1845 and 1846. And he kept trying over and over to recreate this magic that happened with this one book. And he wrote a couple of different books that were supposedly Christmas-themed or charity-themed. Maybe not Christmas-themed, but charity-themed.
I didn't even know that.
In the same vein as Christmas Carol. But they never took off. They never got nearly as popular.
Well, Charles Dickens' like great-great-grandson to this day, well, like it just keeps getting like each generation does it. Like it was just like last year before that, he was in Philly doing a live reading of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, I think I saw that.
And you could meet him. And I had an old coworker of mine, like every time someone in his family would come and read, she would go and get the book signed. But it's just crazy it carried that long. Yeah.
That was one of the things toward the end of his life. He realized that he would get paid very, very well for going on stage and reading A Christmas Carol. So he would do that a lot toward the end of his life. The last few years of his life, he made a lot of money doing that. That's probably where that came from. His family has probably carried on the tradition ever since. Yeah,
because it's like I said, I think it's his great-great-grandson now, and who is an old man.
Right.
Does it.
Right.
So
that is basically, there's more to the story. It goes on with his life story, and I'm not going to get into an autobiography of Charles Dickens, but that's kind of the gist behind it, is that when he wrote this story, he wrote this very unique story that was part ghost story, part time travel story. And they make a point in this book to say that, when you're trying to make a serious point, and he was trying to make a serious point about social class.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're trying to do that, it sometimes helps to write it in the context of something that is not taken as seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Because it sort of paves the way into people's minds. So if you're writing about a social issue in his day, if he just straight up wrote a book about a social issue, kind of like his other books, maybe they would have been popular, but would they have taken off the way Christmas Carol did?
Mm-hmm.
What he did was he wrote it in the context of a ghost story and a time travel story and all these fantastical elements.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, come for the fantastical elements, stay for the social commentary.
Yeah, anyone rich or poor
Right.
could almost, I don't want to say relate to it, but yeah.
Yeah. And it is. It's something where people will look at it because it's such a unique type of book, story. But then at the end of the day, the point is kind of woven in there.
Right.
And you hope that kind of gets through to people's minds and people with the ability to make these changes, make the changes in society.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was his ultimate point with that book.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. It's I didn't know. I knew all about Christmas Carol, the story. I didn't know the history of it, and
I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, and I didn't
So
know how
interesting.
much of an effect that it had on the actual holiday. To the effect where it literally, like the book says, literally reinvented. He didn't invent Christmas, but in a way he sort of reinvented Christmas.
Yeah.
In the mid 1800s,
Mm-hmm.
because it had gone again into a secondary holiday phase. It wasn't nearly as popular as we have today.
Right.
So
Charles Dickens.
What is your favorite Christmas movie though? I mean, because this movie, the Christmas Carol, has been done a million times, revisited. The
Yeah.
last one I believe was Jim Carrey, the one that I remember, which he did a fantastic
cartoon?
job.
Oh yeah.
No, Jim Carrey was not the cartoon. He was real life, was it? No, it was animation. It was computer
Yeah.
animation. It was very well done. It was cartoon. I don't look at computer animation as cartoon. It's just so really nice, but it is cartoon. I think I'm old. When I think of cartoon, I think of Bugs Bunny and freaking that kind of stuff.
Bugs
And
Bunny is Ebenezer Scrooge.
cell animation. I don't look at. Disney has done it with Mickey Mouse, but out of all of the Christmas movies, I love talking about this on shows because everybody has a different Christmas movie that every year they like to watch.
What's yours, Jen? You said Scrooge?
Scrooge. It would have to, honestly, I think it'd have to be a tie between Scrooged, and what is the one with the Ralphie? Why am I blanking?
Oh, Christmas Story.
Christmas
Christmas-
Story. Just classic.
I don't like the classics. I go with like Elf,
But Elf's a classic.
or Fred Claus. Fred Claus is one that so many people don't appreciate.
No, I don't like that one.
But it's so good, and it even has Ludacris in it. I mean, how can you go wrong with
Yeah.
Ludacris as an elf?
Listen. Christmas Vacation.
I
Well,
literally was
That
gonna say
that is the go-to.
classic.
I'll take that over the, what did you say, the one with Ralphie?
Yeah.
Christmas
Christmas
Story.
Yeah.
I'll take that over any of those any day.
But I have to watch Christmas Story every year.
Oh yeah, Christmas Eve.
At
it's
least
just on
at least
TV.
once.
It's just on TV all day.
Now, the funny thing is, just going down this realm of Christmas movies real fast, is that that one movie, every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. Which movie is that?
Miracle.
Wonderful Life. It's a
Yeah, it's
Oh.
wonderful. Now, that movie back in the day was a crap movie
Right.
that nobody wanted.
Right.
So they ran it nonstop because it was a time filler.
Right.
But nobody would watch it, so it filled up time. And after years and years and years and years, it became a classic. But it was, at the time, was
It was a failure.
it was a huge failure.
Well, not to bring up Halloween, but Hocus Pocus flopped
Yeah.
in theaters, and it wasn't until 10 years later.
Still not a fan.
Goodbye. but no, it's just funny that like these movies weren't even that big of a. Some movies weren't a big deal.
Yeah.
And then it's like
they
you
get
just-
appreciated later on because I
Yeah.
think I don't know. I just think that sometimes it's the movie when they're put in a movie theater, they're run so quickly, especially like a themed holiday movie like Halloween or a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
You can't run that for 3 months. You can only run that for maybe 3 weeks.
And then it's
So
done.
not everybody gets a chance to see it, and I think people kind of have an idea of what it's going to be and if it's not that exact thing, they're like, oh fuck, it sucks. But then later on, like Mike say, when you replay that movie over and over and over and over and over and over and over on TV, it becomes a traditional viewing.
It's not about what the context of the movie is. It's the nostalgia, it's the tradition of just that movie playing.
Right.
Yep. And I think that's why A Christmas Story, to me, will always be one of my top.
That was a failure too.
Yeah, I think I read that somewhere.
Yeah, that didn't make shit worth of money when it came out.
Yeah, but now the brother Randy, he you can visit the house. It's now a museum.
Yeah, I saw that.
And Randy
Really?
runs. He
It's in
owns the
Indiana.
house. Yeah, he owns the house across the street, and he runs the museum.
Yeah. Randy with the big freaking
Yeah. Yep.
17 coats on.
But yeah, it's I want to go to the house one day.
Does it have the leg in front? The leg
It's all
statue?
true to the movie.
Or lamp?
Fragile.
Fragile. It must
Fragile.
be Italian. But Christmas Vacation is 1000%
Oh,
a
God.
classic. But did you know, little fun fact, did you know that the Griswolds from that movie were not the Griswolds from
Oh, I know.
the first
They
one
change
or the
every
Vegas
movie.
Vacation?
Yeah, they change almost every movie.
Yeah, and even though they all have like the same names and
Do
stuff.
you know who they are though?
What do you mean?
Do you know who the kids are in that movie?
Yeah, I know who they are like now.
Yeah, like the one dude is in Big Bang
Yeah,
Theory.
And then Juliet
Lewis.
yeah, she's in that too.
In fact, Taryn was telling me the other day. I didn't know this because I don't watch the Connors. The show The Connors.
Yes.
But apparently he's David.
Yeah.
And Juliette Lewis at the beginning of that series recently played his girlfriend in the series.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even realize. Oh gosh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Jesus.
No, listen, I don't watch the Connors because they kicked Roseanne off, so I don't watch it.
It is actually kind of funny. I watch it every now and then.
I loved it when Roseanne was on it, and then they kicked her off, and I said, "Screw y'all!
Yeah.
Turn you off of my recordings."
Yeah, you showed them.
Showed them.
Jen's not watching. Oh God.
Shit.
We're gonna flop.
What do we do now?
All right.
Big ass meetings over it.
Yeah. How do we bring back the Jen demographic?
Bring Roseanne back. That's how.
Yeah. All right. So it's been an interesting day, but as, again with the show. Sorry we couldn't get this out on Thursday, but this is a little bit of a late showing here on Saturday afternoon. Mike was kind enough to give us a studio for the afternoon here.
With his busy weekend of parties and
Christmas parties and whatnot.
porn.
Rick, whoa. Are you watching my cameras in here? Security cameras are being hacked. But Rick wanted to make sure he got one out before the holidays, before Christmas.
Yeah.
And, as we close out this year of 2020, that will go down in history.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
Well. So as far as going forward, I don't know. I honestly don't know what's going on for the next week or two because the Thursday of the next 2 weeks falls on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. Mm-hmm. So we're not obviously I'm not gonna impose on Mike to do shows on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. So
You'll have a drunk producer.
yeah,
What else is we
Yeah,
don't any
yeah.
other day?
Really, that's a valid point.
What?
All right.
It's just
Would there be a difference?
just a Monday night.
Point taken.
So anyway, but it's a long time between now and January 6th or whatever the next date would be. So what I'm going to try and do is figure out a way, maybe I'll talk to Mike off camera, figure out a way to maybe come in, maybe on a Saturday again or something, between now and then or a weekday if we have time to do it. And just do another show between now and then we'll do our first one of 2021. Jesus Christ, 2021. It's just bizarre to even say.
It's crazy.
On January 6th, I think it is. Mm-hmm. All right, so that's the show for the day. So I want to thank you guys for listening.
Yes, thanks for tuning in.
Have a great holiday. Have a great New Year. If I don't talk to you before then,
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Jen, thanks for coming in. Mike,
Yes.
thanks again for the studio and for your production work. And again, happy holidays, happy New Year. Talk to you guys later. We're Paradelphia,
See ya.
and we are out of here.